Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here as your host, and we're getting an update today from our friend and colleague Sean Brodrick. Sean is the editor of Wealth Megatrends and contributing analyst to Weiss Ratings Daily, and he puts out a number of publications, not just Wealth Megatrends, but Supercycle Investor, Resource Trader, and he gets into the macro side of things in some publications, but also the micro side of certain sectors. And of course, we love the commodity sector and some of the resource stocks, but we'll also branch out into other areas of the market that Sean's interested in. I guess, Sean, it's been over a month since we've talked. When we last talked, it was the end of August, if you can believe it. And we had a rocket ship ride in so many sectors in the month of September, and that's bled over into continued moves higher into October. Let's kick it off with the precious metals, gold and silver. I mean, as we record this today, gold's at $4,000. We're finally there. Silver's been in the $47 to $48 range the last couple of days. The precious metal stocks have been surging. What's your takeaway from the precious metals sector?
Precious metals has had a great run. We are seeing the stock start to sell off now as everyone anticipates a pullback now that gold has hit $4,000 an ounce. But as you and I were just talking about, if everybody's expecting the pullback, do we actually get the pullback? I don't know. Now, I know that when I got back from Beaver Creek, I sent off a bunch of recommendations to my subscribers, which are all doing incredibly well. But then I stopped. After that 1 week, I just stopped. Why? Because I'm also thinking, well, we'll have to have a pullback of 4,000, and that could be a big one. So maybe we'll have an opportunity just to pick up some more stuff on the cheap. We'll have to see what happens here. I mean, now I'm wishing that I just kept buying all throughout the month of September. Probably should have, but at some point you just have to be happy with what's going on in your portfolios. Because after being beaten down so long, just like anyone else who is in natural resources, I'm trying to adjust my mindset so I can accept happiness, because we had some lean years, but now, I mean, anything you buy goes up. It's weird. And I don't think it can last forever. I think a bull market makes anyone look smart. You shouldn't take it for granted. You shouldn't think, oh my God, suddenly I'm a genius. But on the other hand, you have to accept that, things are kind of working out there. And so they can work out for quite some time to come.
Oh boy, are they working out. These stocks, especially precious metals, but a lot of other sectors I know we'll get into, also running much higher. Sean, just curious, because you're right, we are seeing a little bit of weakness today in the stocks. I've noticed a little bit of a loss of momentum in the precious metals stocks broadly over the last week or two. But have you noticed any standout, let's say, subsector of these stocks, any certain stage of precious metal stocks that seem to be outperforming the rest in this environment where it does seem like everything is moving higher?
Well, for the longest time, the juniors were underperforming. But over the past 3 months or so, the juniors have really come to the forefront, right? I mean, they're really starting to outperform very nicely, and just playing a lot of catch up is what they're doing to what the big stocks did. Because now Wall Street's waking up to the fact that there's a lot of undervalued companies that have great projects that are going to be in production this cycle. And so maybe you should start paying attention to them. So those companies that can bring projects into actual production in this current cycle, and that has to be in the next couple of years, those are the ones where I'm really concentrating now. They don't have to be producers, though I still will buy producers, but those that have a nice project coming along, that's going to excite people, because a lot of people will be thinking, well, the gold miners don't actually do much of their own exploration anymore. What they do is they wait for other companies to find something good and then they buy them. So these smaller companies that have good projects that haven't quite developed yet, they're looking mighty attractive, not only to other companies, but to the US government. We saw what happened with Trilogy Metals. I mean, the US government just bought 10% of it. Why? Well, it's a copper, cobalt, zinc deposit. It's one of the largest in North America. It's advanced, but it's not in production yet. Just by putting some money to work there, they can actually boost that along. And so I was just making a list earlier this morning about large North American projects that aren't in production yet, and trying to grade them by how attractive I think they are to maybe getting an injection of cash from Uncle Sam. And that's something we haven't talked about yet, but it's a real thing in the market now. It's like something we have to deal with. And that's not gold necessarily, though there are some multi-ore projects, that can be gold and something else, like maybe antimony, something like that. But there's real potential there for all sorts of cash to come to this market.
Yeah, Sean, you bring up a really interesting topic there of the U.S. government getting involved in the biggest way I think I've ever seen in the mining sector, not just from a regulatory standpoint, which helped the Trilogy Metals project because of that Ambler road access, but also direct investments. I mean, we've seen it starting with MP Materials, stepping into the rare earth company, but we saw the Department of Defense get involved with the tungsten company, Guardian Metals. We've seen the U.S. government get involved with U.S. Antimony in an antimony project, talking about the critical minerals, and now taking a stake in Trilogy directly, for the copper and multi-element, different critical minerals. This is the first time we've ever seen the government taking this kind of a position, literally in companies, but also helping remove some of the red tape. If you look at all the development stage projects that are out there, do you think that it could actually extend into silver and gold at one point if they have some of those other kickers involved and we keep seeing the silver added to the strategic metals list and gold? Do you think it could spread into precious metals?
Well, one thing I have to think about is the Pebble project, right? I mean, that's had one logjam after another that's been in the way, and the Trump administration likes to remove red tape, right? And so, I mean, I haven't been anywhere near that project in a long time because they always say it'll never get built, but it's a huge gold project. What if it can get built? So, that's an example of the kind of thing that could be helped out by the U.S. government. Now, I don't think the U.S. government is as interested in gold and silver as it is in critical minerals. That's an important point. But there are plenty of small junior companies with some nice projects out there that could be classified as critical minerals and therefore could be something the U.S. government wants to invest in. I don't think they'll stop at just one, not if they're smart. They want multiple projects because oftentimes things go wrong on projects. You have to have one actually working out so you don't look like a complete dunderhead. So I expect they'll make multiple injections of cash into multiple projects and see how that works. We're also seeing it, by the way, and I hate to go completely scattershot over here. We're also seeing it happen in what I call next gen defense, which is drones, anti-drones, rockets, hypersonics. The government is making directed injections of cash into certain companies there as well. And so that's really working out for them too.
Yeah, the one trend here, right? Critical minerals and some of this next gen defense, it's mostly geared around defense and minerals that the government needs to really build up their defense, right?
Yes,
Gold,
yeah,
silver
right.
doesn't really fit into that world. But hey, if the government gets more supportive on precious metals, who knows where the prices could go? But these stocks are already doing well just on their own front with central banks really supporting gold and silver. Look, those are doing well. Everyone's been waiting for a pullback, but the prices just keep on moving higher. We'll wait for that pullback and then touch base on what might be a buying opportunity. The critical minerals stocks, though, again, boy, oh boy, those are doing well on the back of government support, but these stocks have just absolutely taken off. What critical minerals are you most focused on? Which ones are you putting in your portfolio?
Antimony, uranium, rare earths, those are all things we're doing extraordinarily well with, and the wins just keep on coming. I mean, even on a down day for the market, which is rare, but we seem to be having it, for example, USA Rare Earths, which is one of our positions, it's up more than 10% on the day. And, it has a nice big fat open gain. Longer term, we've only had that one since like August 25th, but it's doing fantastic. United States Antimony Corporation, we have 187% open gain on that thing. We bought that back in June, and we just hit 200% on Energy Fuels, which is both uranium and rare earths. And so that one's really in the catbird seat. I think it has much higher to go. Now, I did have subscribers take 150% gains last week. It actually worked out to like 168% just because the stock jumped on the day. So I'm not being a, hold forever kind of person. I'm just trying to take some gains on the way up. But if I can get 160% gains on half of a position, then the entire investment is covered. That's fine. That's so now I'm just playing with the house's money. It's a very enviable place to be. And so now I have these things closing in on like 200% open gains. I'll probably take half gain somewhere, and then just let the rest ride. And then we'll have more cash to invest in other things, which will probably be in critical minerals, uranium, copper also, which is a critical mineral, by the way. And so there are some U.S. projects that could get some real interest there. Silver was recently added to the critical minerals list, which I thought was kind of interesting. So we don't think of silver as a critical mineral, but maybe the White House is thinking of it. I don't know. So that's something else to keep in mind. And I still have a couple oil stocks. I'm probably going to sell those. I still think oil's going to have a good year. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but the stocks I have pay me to hold them anyway. So it's not like we're losing money on it. But on the other hand, what I'm losing is opportunity. And in the short term, I'd rather be in those areas of the market that really can do well. And right now, those are things like precious metals. We are going to buy the pullback, critical minerals, uranium. Those are the things that are just bringing home the bacon for us.
Well, Sean, you threw out a bevy of ideas there to jump into. Maybe we can hit a couple of these rapid fire just on their own, because you brought up rare earths, you brought up uranium, you brought up the oil and gas sector, you brought up critical mineral. There's a lot to dig into. Let's do rare earths real quick. Rare earths, you brought up a couple company names there, but we get a lot of questions. I've had a lot of people emailing me saying, are you looking at deposits? Are you looking at exploration plays? Are you looking at development plays? I've typically answered back that personally, I'm just looking at the processors, the downstream processors that separate these 17 exotic metals. Are you playing any of the development stage companies or companies with assets in the ground for rare earths, or are you mostly looking at processing of it?
Well, that's a great question. And I think you have to look at those companies that are doing the development plays, because those are the ones the White House is looking at. And so if they're going to put their money to work there, I mean, the difference they can make in these stocks, not only the money, but the vote of confidence, just really is transformational for those stocks. So you have to look, I think, at the development plays. You don't have to buy them, but you should be looking at them, because there are some real opportunities there. And, there's a whole bunch of ones we could actually talk about. Like, one I haven't bought yet is American Rare Earths, but I'm thinking about it. And we'll have to see how it goes. Now, that said, I always try to keep my feet on the ground. Everyone's excited right now. There is excitement pouring into the market. Things ebb and flow. There will be a pullback. If you missed it, and I'm not saying buying right now is a bad idea. In fact, buying right now I think is a good idea. But if you want to wait for a pullback, you're going to get a pullback at some point, and you can just wait for that. So no one should feel like their pants are on fire and they have to act immediately. No one should feel like that. But there are opportunities out there, so I think you just have to be open to them, including in the development stage stocks.
Hey, FOMO is definitely here for a lot of these stocks. Let's also talk uranium. I had an interesting conversation with the person in the uranium field recently that said they made the argument that they aren't really looking to get into any of the explorers simply because the last uranium bull market, so much uranium was found that is still known and sitting in the ground waiting to be developed. So curious to hear how you're playing uranium when it comes to this push for nuclear energy. It's definitely on everyone's radar. We read a lot of news about it, and uranium is simply the feed for that.
Right. I buy U.S. and Australian companies, and also Canadian companies, let's be honest, that are either in production or have a path to production. That's a very short list. I don't buy the explorers. There's a guy at Weiss who is very big on a company that has the largest North American deposit of uranium. At least that's what the company says. The problem is it's also incredibly low grade. Well, not incredibly low grade, but very low grade. So the economics at which that will work will come at a higher uranium price. I'm not saying we aren't going to get there, but it's going to be a while. And so the chance of any real money going after that project is not going to happen anytime soon. So I like the stuff that can be in production soon or is in production and about to raise production, and also is going to be helped out by U.S. policy changes, which we have seen become much more friendly to the companies and also less friendly to Russia. There's a lot of things juggling in the air there. And again, we could have another pullback. I mean, it might not look like it right now, but things can happen. It's just that the big trend, people are starting to accept nuclear power as a cleaner alternative. There is no such thing as actually clean energy. Everything comes with some kind of cost, but nuclear power is one of the cleaner solutions you can have. And that makes more and more sense to more and more people. So I think the nuclear future is bright.
Well, Sean, when we were in Beaver Creek, I actually sat down with a couple of uranium companies. One of them was Encore Energy, that's a producer. And I just asked about the lay of the land in the U.S. and said, hey, with so much domestic interest in nuclear power and all these executive orders and all of the different bills that, the Inflation Reduction Act from the Biden administration and the big, beautiful bill from Trump, they all had parts in there about nuclear power, development of enriching and fuel. I said, what do you think the environment's like in the U.S.? And they said they expect to see consolidation. And I thought, well, from who? There's only 4 or 5 companies, but there are about 4 or 5 producers in the U.S. Do you expect to see a larger company formed by consolidating some of those? And would that flirt with becoming a monopolistic company at that point?
Well, I don't think Washington, D.C. has a problem with monopolies. If it did, we wouldn't have Microsoft, we wouldn't have Google, but that's not really what I am worried about now. I'm an Encore Uranium shareholder, and it is a recommended position in Resource Trader. So I just want to put that out there so people know that I have a stake in this. So I'm not a disinterested observer. Encore really kicked its own stock down the stairs a while back when it did a big fundraising. And it recovered from that eventually, and we're up a nice double-digit percentage gain, but it still underperforms, like, for example, Energy Fuels. Now, rare earths could be part of the reason for that, but Encore has the ingredients to do much better than it's already doing, I think. I realize they feel they had to do the fundraising, but one thing we can see at these sky-high prices that I just want to remind everybody of, we can see companies raise money. One thing that I've been doing recently is I'm trying to find those companies that have already raised money, already pre-catastrophed the stock, so I don't have to worry about it in the next year. Because if they haven't raised money in a while, well, they might. So keep that in mind as well, is that one of the problems we've often dealt with, especially in precious metals, is shareholder dilution, And so these companies can have good or bad reasons for issuing shares, raising money, but whatever the reason is, it always sucks to be the shareholder who's already in and then sees your shares diluted by 10%. So keep that in mind as well. Just to get back to Encore, I think that company has such great projects and such a great future. It should do incredibly well. I still think it has some hangover from the share issuance, but that'll just fade into the rear view mirror eventually, and this stock is really going to take off. That's the reason why I'm a shareholder.
Sean, you brought up something there with all the financings that have taken place really over this whole year, but really ramped up in the junior space over summer. Some of these being life deals, so shares free trading right away. Many, though, being simple brokered deals, bought deals where the shares come out in 4 months. We are going to see a flood of new free trading shares come out through the rest of this year. Hasn't mattered recently because these stocks have just kept going up even after the financings have been announced and closed. How closely should investors be paying attention to those companies that have raised money, that are doing well, but will have a lot of shares free trading in the next few months?
Well, it's kind of an obsession with me, and it's something I'm trying to help my subscribers with. I think it's something you have to pay attention to, and you'd be foolish not to. That has always been a nagging problem in the industry. It isn't going away, and at some point it is going to matter.
Well, Sean, I think one last question I want to squeeze in here is just the oil and gas sector. You mentioned that it's something you're considering selling. I was listening to other people's podcasts last night just to get some perspective on what people are talking about, and several people think oil and gas could be the new contrarian play, that nobody loves it, nobody cares about it, oil's been stuck in a range, nat gas has been pulling back. could it be the time to rotate money out of some of these hot sectors and put it in oil and gas?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly that's in my future. And like I said, I own oil and gas stocks. I'm just considering selling some of them now, just because when you put this money into, say, critical mineral stocks, your money somehow seems to go up by 50% in a month. But there's nothing wrong with a bunch of oil and gas stocks, and there's a lot right. There's a lot that can really go right if, say, the price of oil rises by $10, which isn't a lot. And these things can really start to look good. So you always go back, or at least I do, always go back to oil and gas for like value. That's what I really like. I'm not looking for someone who's a wildcat explorer doing stuff where they live and die by the next drill hole. What I'm looking for is those companies that are steadily pumping out cash, improving their economics on the ground, and just sending me larger and larger checks. That's the kind of stuff I like. But, everyone has to approach this industry the way that suits them.
Well, some good thoughts there. And yeah, the oil and gas stocks are one of the few areas where they pay really hefty dividends, so they can pay you to wait, but that only comes when they're a producer cranking out the fluids or the gases. So definitely some interesting thoughts on the whole commodity sector there. Maybe next time, Sean, we'll dive more into the next generation of defense. But we just needed to get in a commodities update with you because it's been a while, and it's been a wild run the last month and a half here. So for those of you listening in, if you want to follow along with more of Sean's work, definitely click on the link below in the show notes. It takes you over to Weiss Ratings, where you can see his suite of offerings, everything from the macro to the micro. And if you're interested in the stock side of it, definitely check out Resource Trader. But Sean, always great to have you on the show. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Thanks. And I did want to mention that I'll be at the Orlando Money Show, which is later this month. And so if anyone's around, please come see me and they'll hear my hot gold picks.